This is my observation of myself as a critical reader during this semester. This is me. I'm a computer science major, so at the beginning of the semester I had no idea what to expect from English 201. I thought it would be boring and just a means to read a book here or there and give feedback. I wasn't too fond of literature and haven't found the time to read anything I didn't have to read for a while now, and I took this class because I needed it as an elective and it was conveniently online. My initial understanding of the reader response theory prior to English 201 was zilch. I haven't taken an English class since freshman year, which was, on second thought, I don't want to date myself, so let me rephrase. It's been a very long time since I've taken an English class. The reader response theory allowed me to really think and pay attention to what I was reading. I had a list of things I wanted to look out for in order to complete the worksheets. So I first read through the story, then I went back and reread it, and I found out that this technique really works wonders. I can't tell you how many things I missed from my initial read when I reread the story a second time. My first reader response was to Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried. When I first read this story, I thought I was getting the author's non-fictional account of what it was like for him as a soldier at war. It allowed me to think critically and ask myself questions in order to fully grasp what the author was trying to tell me. I found that rereading is again one of the most important tips for closely reading and annotating a text. The key is to start early so that you have time to truly understand the reading. And I loved reading the professor's comments after we submitted our work, because that definitely helped to boost my confidence and gave me the motivation to work harder and think more critical for the next assignment. Before reading the first story, we were asked by the professor to pick 3 strategies we'd like to focus on during the semester. My strategies from the tips for close reading and annotating text were that I'd love to try taking notes in margins or use post-it notes, to look out for imagery, and to pay closer attention to repeating words or images to determine what effect they had on me. I've come to realize that this was my favorite part of the course, and I surprised myself on how I was able to interpret the rhetorical devices and literary elements. When looking for imagery, there was always something that stood out in the stories, like in A Worn Path by Eudora Welty, where the main character, Phoenix's face, was described as, her skin having a pattern all on its own, of numberless branching wrinkles, and though a whole little tree stood in the middle of her forehead. I love finding other literary elements on my own, and this was because when I was completing the assignment, I had already annotated most of the literary elements by marking them with a post-it note, so that made me feel better that I was doing the right thing. Thinking critically involves being open-minded and using judgment to process what you're reading. It allows you to relate to the story by becoming more aware of your own feelings on the subject at hand, and it ties into your prior knowledge and understanding of a certain topic. I enjoyed learning new words. This was one of the best parts of the semester, and I'm glad that it was part of the critical thinking assignments. One word I've definitely used after reading The Shawl by Cynthia Ozick was ravenous, because if you know me, you know I love to eat, and my family thinks that if I'm upset, I just need food. So I'm always ravenous, apparently. The digital tools and applications that I liked most during the semester were SlideShare and Flipgrid. SlideShare is an application I've never used before. I mean, for an IT major, I really need to start familiarizing myself with all these applications. It's like an online PowerPoint that's accessible without having to lug around a laptop or a flash drive, and it's also very easy to use. Flipgrid is also something I'd never used before or heard of. And I love this tool because it helped to connect with the professor and the other students in the class. I really enjoyed our first Flipgrid assignment, guessing fibs, and wish there were more so that I can get to know my classmates throughout the semester. It also showed me that I need to work on my presentation skills. Had way too many ums. This course opened up so many emotions for me. I was able to relate to almost every story to my personal life. My children were the topic of almost every reader response we've done, and that's why I was so emotionally connected to these stories. So much that I even cried every time I wrote or spoke about The Shawl by Cynthia Ozick. This was a very touching, emotional story where a mother loses her baby to the electric fence during the Holocaust. One of the biggest challenges I faced was time management. Procrastination really got the best of me this semester. However, I have found that I work really well under pressure, but I always think about how much better this could have been if I worked on it over the allotted time for the assignment. I had a few aha moments during this semester. This one came after we had to write a poem about a painting we had to choose. I surprised myself on how easily I was able to depict what I was looking at in words, and I definitely plan on trying this in the future. Who knows? I may be a future poet or a songwriter. This course allowed me to remember how much I actually love to read and brought out the best in me from a writing standpoint. It has even helped me to become a better listener, and I'm much more analytic. Thank you for making this semester much better than what I initially expected.